Hi, Miriam, can you hear me?
Perfectly.
I would like to welcome everyone again to Pride in the Living Room, Jewmos edition. So, as a quick reminder, Pride in the Living Room was founded by Israeli LGBT taskforce Agudah in memory of the 2009 Tel Aviv Gay Center shooting and the Jerusalem Pride Parade stabbing in 2015. And Agudah founded this project to offer a platform to LGBT Jews from around the world to share their stories, to encourage empathy and community. And with all of that said, it is my pleasure to welcome Miriam to the stage, all the way from Canada. And Miriam, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jared. I just wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak and share a bit about my story. I haven't rehearsed this, so this is going to be a fresh, uncut version. I saw your amazing story where you shared some of your background and coming out and being Jewish and where you are today. And to start off, who am which is similar to how you did, is I'm Miriam, and I am a very old 35. I was born in Ottawa, Canada, and raised in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I do use feminine she, her pronouns. And this summer has been very special. If it were not for the pandemic, I'd probably just be going about my normal life. But as a result of this, I have been able to connect with several Pride LGBTQ plus groups. And one of them is the group that is hosted by Gerard, which is Jewmos. And this virtual community has made me realize there is a strong movement of LGBTQ plus Jews who are trying to reconnect and rekindle the, I guess, faith of many, if not having been already rekindled, but at least for me, that's how it feels because I've been out of the loop for more than 10 years now. And I do feel very grateful for this opportunity to be a part of many Pride initiatives online. So just to share briefly some of my coming out difficulties coming from a Jewish background where similar to Jared and I'm sure many others, I was raised in a Jewish home and where we celebrated Shabbat weekly and all Jewish festivals. And I imagine myself just growing up like a normal Jewish person, starting a normal Jewish home, being married to a man up until the age I was about 19, where I had a very jarring wake-up call, and I didn't actually realize it myself, but one of my friends from high school said to me with regards to a woman, it sounds like you're in love with her. And I remember thinking my whole world started to crumble at that point because it was like lightning had struck me, and I just was jarred at the thought that I wasn't fitting into the model that had been taught to me, which was my whole world. And I was actually on MSN at the time. I was talking to this classmate, and I remember thinking to myself, whoa, what are the implications of this? And I went into denial for a couple of years after that. And so basically my journey began at that moment of realization that perhaps I was not going to live the life I had envisioned. And it was a very difficult moment since I was deeply involved in my community. And so starting from that moment forward, I started to think that perhaps something was wrong. But I start to realize that the main thing that is important is to be true to yourself. So I started to go on that model, and I started to think, okay, what's the worst? And I thought at the time, the worst is, I'm going to have to just change communities. I'm just going to need to find people who are like me and who accept me for who I am. So it was difficult for a while because when I came out very dramatically to my friends one night, I decided to send a mass text that I copied and pasted to many friends telling them I was a lesbian. I think they thought I was joking because I had a few people coming back saying, "Are you serious? What's the meaning of this?" The next thing I know, I go to Shabbat on a Saturday, and the rabbi is actively speaking against being gay, unfortunately, and I was trembling in my seat thinking, oh no, I hope the message didn't go around, because all my friends at the time were part of the community. So apparently the message did get to the rabbi, and I got called into the office with the Rebbitzin, and she was pretty convinced that I did not know what I was talking about. She's like, there's no way that you can be gay. There's no way that you know what you're talking about. We're going to set you up to speak to someone in the congregation who can maybe help you sort through these things. And in the meantime, don't share this with anyone else. Don't share it with our children. Don't share it with any of your friends. And at that point, I realized that it was a turning point, and I had to decide whether or not I was going to go along with that or stick to what I felt in my gut, which was that I was not straight for sure, and that I was a lesbian. It doesn't sound like a great word, but that was the best way to describe myself, and that's before I had any experiences. And I decided at that point not to go to any of those follow-up meetings and to just, find university friends to become roommates with, because it was clear that my message of coming out was not being readily accepted by everyone, and I did not want to create any further awkwardness. So I eventually just found a roommate at university in my program, and everyone else seemed to be fine with who I was. And I thought, this is probably the end of being part of the Jewish community, and it felt very alienating, because that was my primary identity as a person. I was first Jewish, and then being gay seemed to be a very secondary but painfully unwelcome factor of my identity. So I thought, okay, that's it. The plan to live a Jewish life, have Jewish children, and be part of the community, it's all over. I must, just go with my gut and move forward. So at that point, I hadn't come out to my family. Except my sister, who was already kind of doing her own thing and very open-minded. And in fact, when I came out to my sister, she said, "Oh, we were waiting, her and her partner were waiting for me to come out for some time." Apparently it wasn't so unobvious to everyone. So anyway, so I kind of went on thinking, okay, that's it. Who do I date? Who do I even talk to? And so then previously I had only ever had dated Jewish men, and that went on for a very brief period before it became very clear to me that wasn't for me. And I thought to myself, wow, this whole romanticized world of how life is to be, it's just not really chalking up to, it's not making sense to me. And so I went on thinking I had lost this whole community for a long time. And then about a year and a bit ago, I actually met a Jewish woman online, and we dated for several months. And she told me how her family had accepted her, how she was involved in some LGBTQ plus groups. And I was really amazed because I thought to myself, I didn't actually know she was Jewish at the time. We randomly matched, and it came out in retrospect. I guess she recognized that Miriam is a Jewish name, and her name wasn't resoundingly Jewish, so I didn't think much about it. But I remember thinking a light went off inside, and I thought, there's some hope. I, perhaps haven't lost that part of my world, which was everything, similar to what Jared had shared. It's a critical part of your growing up experience. And I felt like, okay, well, maybe there's some hope. So I did do some brief inquiries at the time to see if there are any synagogues who are open to people of LGBTQ plus identities like myself. And I found a few synagogues in the Greater Toronto area, but was too busy to do anything about it at the moment until I joined my first Pride Shabbat in person, just in, I would say the fall of 2019, just before the pandemic started. So at that point I thought, okay, this is great. At least I can make some meaningful connections to my spirituality and my background. So anyway, so then the pandemic decides to come upon us. And at that point, I realized, you know what, I'm going to see what's online. And I found several groups, including Jewmos. And I started to realize, there are many more Jewish people that are queer or LGBTQ plus, and that I can connect with on this level. And it's not like I've completely lost a whole history that, I grew up with and was deeply involved with. So I feel like there's a lot of hope in terms of keeping that part of my life alive now that I've connected with these groups. And I do feel very grateful, and not like I've lost an arm and a leg for coming out, which initially I was okay with. So it's been a great awakening experience, finding these things in my lifetime, which I wasn't sure if I would find, partially after seeing the documentary Trembling Before God, just showing the experiences of some gay and lesbian Jewish people in the ultra-Orthodox or Orthodox community who were quite frankly terrified to show their faces on camera. And after that documentary, I had completely lost hope. But this has been quite a turning point, and I am quite grateful to be able to participate in a community that is growing by the day. And I really hope that many more Jewish, queer, or LGBTQ plus people will feel welcomed and recognized and loved and seen and heard, and not feel like they're losing part of their identity by coming out. And yeah, so that's the main thing. And I do feel very grateful to have met Jared and to be able to participate in his Pride Shabbat. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for your really beautiful words. How do you feel?
I feel relieved. I felt slightly anxious for a few minutes, but yeah. It's a relief.
There's no need to feel anxious. I think what's so wonderful about this project, Pride in the Living Room, is that everybody has a story, you know, and some people like to tell their stories a lot. Other people keep their stories close guarded, but every single story is super, super important. And I know that there are so many people out there who will watch this video and they will identify with something in your story. And it will, you know, people know people know people know people. So uh, the more people who get to experience your journey and the struggles that you've been through, I think has a that has an immense power to it. So I want to thank you again for sharing a story.
And thanks for inviting me.
I have a few questions if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So something that um, something that really stood out to me in your journey was the feeling of disconnection and alienation from the Jewish community. And and some of that was brought on by figures of authority. So you mentioned a conversation you had with the Rebbitzin in the rabbi's office, um, and a big theme to your story is being true to yourself. So I was just wondering, after everything, what's your connection to Judaism these days? What does Judaism mean to you, Miriam?
Well, I would say that Shabbat has always been integral. So even though I left formally the congregation and services, I would keep Shabbat in my own way for many years, and I still to this day where I don't actively work, and it's an important time of the week for me to regroup. And my other connection to Judaism would be just Jewish history, including Holocaust history. And those were the two things that really made me, even on days where you don't feel Jewish at all, would bring me back to realizing that identity and that I hadn't become a different person magically. And it's been a connecting thing for me in terms of Jewish identity. Those two things, in addition to some of the friends I was able to maintain over the years.
Have you had an opportunity to speak with your previous rabbi and rebbitzin with the wisdom that you've gained in recent years?
I actually drove by the synagogue today, so I was thinking about them. They do come to mind quite frequently, and even in dreams. I would love to one day be able to sit down with them to see if anything has changed or if something could be negotiated in terms of being more welcoming to Jews who are not straight. Because literally, if it wasn't such a big issue, I probably wouldn't have left my community. So I would love to be able to have the chance to speak to them one day. And I don't have an agenda in mind, but it would be wonderful to be able to reconnect. But I'm not banking on it, but it would be wonderful for sure. And unfortunately, no, I haven't seen a way for me to talk to them so far.
Mhm. Well, I think that any community that has you as a member is a very lucky community. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
fingers crossed that you're able to have that conversation to at least add some closure to your story.
Yes. And I would love to follow up with that. It's just, now that I'm aware that there is this movement, I do hope that there would be more open-mindedness, at least.
Uh, So something else that you mentioned, which was really fascinating to me, is that you consider yourself Jewish first and then gay secondary. Um,
Yeah, and in fact, sexuality wasn't really something that became a part of my identity until I realized I wasn't straight. So I was living Jewish first, and then as a person, then I did my music, and then my school. So those were parts of my identity. And then I realized, well, wait a second, there's this important thing that seems to be contradicting everything I was raised to believe, and I have to deal with it. So that became obviously part of it, but I have never pursued that as a primary identifying factor. Just because I have these other worlds that I've just immersed myself in since then, which is primarily my studies and trying to get out into the world.
hmm, okay. I wanted to ask as a follow-up to that because I think that's really, really interesting what you said. And for many people who I've spoken with, being gay is, or being LGBTIQ plus, is such an identifying core factor of their existence. Uh, and they feel like because it's something they always have to fight for themselves or to other people, it just naturally bubbles up and becomes this all incorporate this all inclusive
Encompassing.
identity. It's really interesting what you said. How in your case it's a more subtle, subdued identity, which I think resonates with many many people out there in the world. Um, so as a follow up to that, I wanted to ask. So you're would you say that you're currently out to the Jewish spaces that you interact with?
Yes, and historically, I guess I lack some social finesse in realizing that not everyone would be on the same page with me on the same day. And so I thought, okay, if I came out immediately and had no qualms with that, and in fact had a hard time dating people who were not fully out. One of my longest term relationship was about 7 years, and I subtly encouraged her to come out to people, and it felt strange having to pretend that we were just friends when we were together with people that weren't aware she was out. But I played along with it, and I suppose part of it is realizing that not everyone's going to be on the same page, and that fear of being rejected from your community, which was more salient to her and others. But yes, I want to say unfortunately, but not unfortunately, I did come out quite boldly and just had didn't have the normal qualms, and that did not go so well. And I hope that I'll be able to finesse the situation in the future. So yes, I am out completely to everyone that knows me, and including, I was amazed to see that the Hillel, my campus, has just in the past year, again, this is all seeming to happen in the past year. I noticed their advertisements about their queer friendly space. So I joined several of their meetings, and it was amazing to be there and out with other gay Jews. And so, yes, in all the spaces that I have been in since I have been out, including Jewish spaces, and they've been welcoming. So it was quite heartwarming to see that.
That's amazing to hear. Uh, I was also wondering, so you said that you uh, you don't fully live in gay spaces. But I wanted to ask if you do have any LGBTIQ plus friends, if you are involved in that space, have you come out as Jewish in those spaces?
Yes, in all of them. So none of my friends would ever not know that being Jewish is a part of my identity. And I would say my close circle of friends are a mixture of people from LGBTQ plus and straight identities, and all of them are aware of my identities and have been very welcoming. But I would say if I had to chalk it up, I probably have more straight friends than not, and I have been fortunate enough for them to be welcoming and accepting. So yes, and I would say over the years I have met and become closer to people in the gay community just because, that's the group of people I had more exposure to, and they all know I am Jewish. So sometimes it's a surprise to a few of them, but because I'm not actively practicing, but it is an integral part of my identity. And I think how you were raised will definitely shape you, or even if you become alienated by choice or by the feeling that you shouldn't be there any longer.
Well said. So I saw a cat in the background. Would you like to introduce them? Are they in
Yeah, I
the...
have to. Okay, he's gonna come here. I have a ginger that I found near the university. Come here. And then the other one. So this is Bendy, also known as Kiwi. Come on, look at the camera. There we go. Oh, and the other one has responded to this beautiful boy I found in the bushes near my university. And then I got him a brother named Edison. And he was trying to hassle me for a little while, and I told him he wasn't welcome on the table, and I think he got the message. But I got him to keep him company. So they're two wonderful kitties that they're like my children. So they take care of me, and I take care of them.
It sounds amazing. I'm here all by myself in my apartment, so it's nice to have.
You have a plant behind you, though.
It doesn't talk back. It's a great housemate.
It cleans your air. It gives you
Exactly.
gives you something to care for.
I know that music is very important to you, Miriam.
Yes.
I've had the opportunity to hear your violin skills, your piano skills. I wanted to ask you, what does music mean to you, and has music played a role in your Jewish or your LGBT journeys?
Yeah, growing up, I used to play at Jewish weddings during different festivals. So yeah, Jewish music was something that was very much part of my day to day, including my mother. Didn't really want us listening to secular music, so I got a lot of Jewish music as a result. And I think it's a very healing thing, regardless of the genre that you're listening to, because I did branch out to classical, and now in the past decade or so, more secular. It's this voice that connects you with others, the universe, yourself, and it's definitely been a very healing and cathartic aspect. And I am hoping to develop a music therapy program once I finish my degree. So it's not just going to be a hobby, but I'm hoping to use it study it therapeutically in terms of helping various people not only be healed from listening to it on special programs, but also be healed from playing it and singing. And so, yeah, it's pretty important.
It sounds amazing. I know there's many people out there who have had struggles with their Jewish LGBTIQ plus journeys would gain a lot from that.
And yeah, and I think it could definitely be a connecting and unifying aspect of the experience of I guess, integrating into the community and expressing their stories through music and song.
Well, I have a couple more questions if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely. Shoot away.
So you mentioned as part of your journey with Judaism that there was a friend who reached out to you and I guess reintroduced Judaism to you.
Yes.
What was her name again? If you feel
Um, I won't mention her name directly, but it was a girl I dated in the past year. And she just really opened my mind. She wasn't doing it intentionally, to the fact that there are Jewish communities. She was raised modern Orthodox, and her family accepted her. They might have been disappointed that she came out as gay instead of bisexual. So there's no hope that perhaps she would partner with a man. But apart from that, they were wildly accepting, and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing, and that she had been involved in groups in the area that were LGBTQ plus friendly. So that just kind of signaled to me that it wasn't a dead end, that there was something I could look forward to in part in terms of feeling reconnected to the Jewish community, which has always been important and an integral part of my identity. Even on days where I didn't feel so Jewish, it would surprise me, where I thought, I had gone so far without keeping Shabbat or Pesach or Yom Kippur, so I would, or Hanukkah even, and I realized, wow, there is some hope in terms of being able to be part of the community.
That's amazing. You mentioned being involved recently in Pride events, in the Jewmos Pride Shabbats that I've recently hosted. Did all of that start when she reached out to you?
So I would say within less than a year of that time frame, that's my curiosity was piqued. So then I started to look for those resources. And during this pandemic, now that most things have gone online, I was easily able to find you amongst, I think the other groups were Toronto based. And so it was just really amazing to be able to reconnect with, I was gonna say reconnect, I just connect with Jews with a similar background. So realizing that we don't have to be aliens, we can still be part of the community. And I really hope to see more integration in the future.
I would like to ask one final question. So you took us on a journey into your story, where you came from, where you are today. So I wanted to ask if you can think back to yourself when you were younger, when you were struggling, when you had questions, when you didn't know where the future would lead. If you could speak with that Miriam, what would you say to her?
I would say to her, I had quite a few Jewish. Actually, I would say almost all my friends were Jewish when I came out. So I was really heavily involved in the community, and some of the friends I also met in my workplace, and they came to me. They said, Miriam, if you could just be bisexual and meet the right guy, your life would be so much easier. Or if you could just try to find the right guy for you, everything would just align, like the stars would align in your favor. And I remember feeling jarred instead of them trying to support my journey. They were pleading with me in a loving way that, they wanted to see everything working out well for me in terms of being accepted and having a great life, having an easy life in terms of you know, being socially acceptable and having children, and it's going to be an easy street from there. And I just want to say that, you know, that it's not the end of the world, that you will find many great people, even if at the moment they don't fit into your exact paradigm. You're going to find people who will help enrich you, and you'll grow, and then eventually you'll be able to help others grow, and you will eventually have children, but it might not be in the exact mode that you thought it was. You'll eventually have a wonderful life and be able to share that with others. Maybe there's going to be a slight delay from A to Z, but honestly, I do see things slowly working out in the grand scheme of things, and there is hope. So I am very grateful for these movements, and have see even greater hope for the future.
I think that's a wonderful way to.
And I was going to just add, including being able to have children who I can raise Jewish. Not that I'm going to be Orthodox or anything, but I want to be able to share that with whoever comes into my life. So I see hope for that.
It's so beautifully said. I want to thank you again, Miriam, for donating this time to open up your living room and open up your heart to us. And do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share before we sign off?
No, I wasn't sure how many thoughts or what thoughts would be relevant, but I certainly hope that they will help others along their journey of self-acceptance, finding their way back in the Jewish community and living their happiest and fullest lives possible. So that's all I have to say. And thank you so much, Jared, for having me here.
It's my pleasure. Here's to sharing our stories in this moment and in many moments in the future.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. Bye.